Okay, think about your day. Just, so far. What did you pick for breakfast?
Mm.
Or did you hit snooze? Did you answer that email straight away? Or think I'll get to that later.
Yeah, we make tons of them
Ah,
all day long.
exactly. Countless decisions, big ones, tiny ones. And, well, it's these choices, right? They add up. They basically carve out our whole lives.
It's pretty profound when you stop and actually think about it. How much hinges on these moments?
It really is. And, even something that feels simple, like coffee or tea this morning.
Right.
The stuff happening in our heads to make that choice is surprisingly complex.
Oh, absolutely. Way more than you'd think on the surface.
Which, well, that brings us right here to this deep dive. We've been digging into some really fascinating material on the psychology of decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And for you listening right now, maybe take a second. Think about a big decision you made recently, or even a medium one.
Yeah, what was really going on there?
What really tipped the scales for you? What were those hidden currents pulling you one way or the other?
That's the perfect way to frame it. Because our mission today, really, is to unpack those hidden forces.
Right.
We want to get beyond this idea that we're just, purely logical robots calculating everything.
Yeah, that's definitely not the whole picture.
Not even close. We need to explore the messy parts.
Hmm.
The crucial roles our feelings play, our memories, those mental shortcuts we all take.
The biases.
Exactly. The biases, the subconscious nudges we don't even notice.
Okay, so let's lay it out. We're going to dive into the two main ways our brains think, the fast and the slow road, basically.
System 1 and System 2, yeah.
Then we'll tackle those cognitive biases and heuristics, the mental shortcuts that can sometimes trip us up.
Very important.
We'll look at how our gut feelings, our emotions are often really in the driver's seat.
Often more than we realize.
Plus, how things like fear and what other people think affects us, what happens when there are just too many options.
Choice overload. A modern condition.
Right. And confidence, how that can be good and bad. How just wording a choice changes things framing.
Huge impact.
And the power of habits, those feelings after the choice, like regret.
Oh, yeah. Regret and guilt, big ones.
Decision fatigue, that feeling of being totally drained. And then, really importantly, some practical stuff. Strategies you can actually use to make better calls.
Because understanding all this, it's not just academic, is it?
No, not at all. It's about really understanding ourselves better and maybe getting a bit more control over where we're headed.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And a great place to start is with Daniel Kahneman's work on those two systems of thinking. It's foundational.
Right. Kahneman, System 1 and System 2. So System 1 is like the brain's immediate reaction force, right? Super fast, intuitive.
Automatic, yeah. It runs constantly in the background. Effortlessly.
Like autopilot.
Exactly like autopilot. Think about recognizing a friend instantly in a crowd.
Or slamming the brakes without thinking.
Perfect example. That's System 1. It's incredibly efficient, handles most of our daily stuff without needing conscious effort.
It has to, right? Otherwise, we'd be exhausted by 9 a.m. just deciding things.
We absolutely would.
Yeah.
But there's a downside to that speed.
Okay, what's the catch?
Well, because it relies on intuition and those mental shortcuts, heuristics.
Yeah.
It's prone to errors. Biases creep in. It jumps to conclusions sometimes based on incomplete info. It prefers a story that makes sense, even if it's not totally accurate.
So, snap judgments, first impressions, that's System 1 territory.
Very much so. It fills in the gaps, makes assumptions, can even be where stereotypes start.
Okay, so that's the fast gut reaction system. What about System 2? That's the slow, methodical one.
That's the one. System 2 is your brain's heavy lifter, the analytical engine.
Right.
It kicks in when things get complex, when you need to really focus, weigh evidence, learn something new, question assumptions.
Like doing your taxes or planning a big project.
Exactly. It requires attention, conscious effort. It's logical, careful.
But it sounds like it burns a lot more fuel. Mental fuel.
It absolutely does. It's effortful. That's where we don't use it all the time. Our brains like to conserve energy.
So we default to System 1 whenever possible.
Pretty much. System 2 only gets called up when System 1 flags something as unusual or difficult, or when we consciously decide, okay, I need to really think this through.
So how do they work together usually? System 1 makes the first pass.
Yeah, you could say that. System 1 gives you that quick initial take, an intuition, a feeling.
And then System 2 is like the quality control, stepping in if needed.
Kind of. If something feels off or the stakes are high, System 2 gets activated to do a deeper dive, to analyze, to calculate. But you often have to consciously engage it.
This reminds me of that classic riddle, the bat and ball one.
Ah, yes. The one that costs a $1.10 total.
Yeah. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball?
And the immediate System 1 answer that leaps out is?
10 cents. Always. It just feels right.
It feels right. It's easy, but it's wrong.
Right. To get the actual answer, 5 cents, you have to stop. You have to think.
You have to engage System 2. Override that initial intuitive but incorrect impulse. It perfectly shows how we lean on System 1, even when it leads us astray.
So we need both systems, obviously, but the key is knowing when to hit the brakes on System 1 and consciously fire up System 2.
Precisely. Especially for big decisions, complex problems, or when emotions are running high.
Because System 1 just kind of takes over otherwise.
It tends to dominate, yeah, it's the default. So activating System 2 often requires deliberate effort, a conscious choice to slow down.
Okay, so what's the payoff? If we actually do that more often, engage System 2.
Well, the payoff is significant. You become more intentional. You start seeing through illusions, recognizing your own biases, which we'll get to next.
Making more thoughtful choices, basically.
Exactly, better choices, which can improve, well, everything. Relationships, work, how you handle risk. Your self-awareness grows. You move from just reacting to actually reasoning things through.
It's like upgrading your mental toolkit for those moments that really count. Okay, so let's talk more about those pitfalls, those biases and heuristics.
Right. These are fascinating because they show predictable ways our thinking goes off track.
Predictable errors.
Yeah, systematic deviations from pure logic. Cognitive biases are those deviations, and heuristics are the mental shortcuts that often cause them.
Shortcuts sound useful, though, like saving time and energy.
They are. Our brains evolved them to cope. We're flooded with information constantly. Heuristics let us make quick judgments, efficient decisions. They're mental rules of thumb.
Okay, so they're not inherently bad, but they can lead to trouble.
Precisely. Heuristics are the tools, the shortcuts. Biases are the predictable mistakes that happen when we misuse or over-rely on those tools. We end up seeing the world not as it is, but as it feels based on these shortcuts.
Got it. Okay, let's break down some common ones. Confirmation bias, that's a big one, right?
Huge. It's our tendency to actively look for, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe.
And ignore the stuff that doesn't fit.
Exactly. We filter it out, downplay it, explain it away. Think about reading news articles. We tend to click on the ones that align with our existing views.
Or, arguments about diets or politics. We grab onto the evidence that supports our side.
Precisely. It makes us feel secure in our beliefs, but it can trap us in echo chambers and prevent us from seeing the full picture.
Okay. What about the availability heuristic?
Availability. That's when we judge how likely something is based on how easily examples come to mind.
So if something is really vivid or recent,
we overestimate how common it is. Think about plane crashes. They get huge media coverage, very dramatic.
Makes flying seem really dangerous.
Right, even though statistically driving is far riskier for most people. But car crashes are mundane, less memorable, less available in our minds than a dramatic plane crash story. So our perception of risk gets skewed.
I see. Vividness equals likelihood in our minds, even if it's wrong. Okay, anchoring bias. That sounds like getting stuck on the first thing you hear.
That's exactly it. We rely too heavily on the first piece of information offered the anchor when making decisions, even if that anchor isn't relevant.
Like in negotiations.
Classic example. The first price mentioned, whether it's for a car or a salary, sets a mental benchmark. All subsequent offers are judged relative to that initial anchor.
Even if the anchor was totally random or way too high.
Yep. It subtly influences the range we consider reasonable. Salespeople use this all the time.
Sneaky. Okay, status quo bias. That just sounds like laziness, like sticking with what you know.
It can feel like laziness, but it's a powerful bias. We have a strong preference for keeping things as they are, resisting change.
Even if the change would be good for us.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Think about sticking with the same old phone plan or bank, or even just taking the same route to work every day, even if a better option exists. The comfort of the familiar is strong. Change requires effort and involves uncertainty.
Inertia is powerful. And then halo and horn effects, that's about judging a book by its cover, kind of.
Sort of. It's when our overall impression of a person, based on maybe just one trait, spills over and colors how we see their other traits.
So if someone's attractive, we might assume they're also smart or competent. That's the halo.
That's the halo effect, yes. Mm-hmm. And the horn effect is the opposite. One negative trait, maybe they were rude once, makes us assume everything else about them is bad too.
Wow. That could really affect things like job interviews or first dates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These operate subtly, influencing our judgments without us even realizing it most of the time.
That's the unsettling part, isn't it? That these biases are often working underground in our subconscious.
That's the key. They feel natural. Our biased judgments often feel like common sense at the time, which is why awareness is the first crucial step.
So these biases aren't just minor quirks. They can really impact major life decisions.
Everything. How we vote, what we buy, who we trust, how we see ourselves, our relationships, our beliefs, our goals, even the regrets we end up having later. They weave through almost everything.
Okay, so if we can't just switch them off, what can we do?
We can manage them. Develop awareness and consciously slow down. Pause before jumping to a conclusion.
Ask questions.
Yes. Ask yourself, am I only looking for evidence that supports my view? Is this judgment based on a vivid story or actual data? Am I resisting this just because it's new? Am I letting one good or bad trait overshadow everything else?
It's like putting a speed bump in our own thinking process.
Exactly. It's about becoming more mindful, more intentional.
So understanding this stuff helps us separate fact from feeling a bit better.
Yes, and become more curious, more open to different perspectives, maybe closer to the truth, and ultimately make better choices that shape a better life.
This is huge. We really do like to think of ourselves as logical, don't we? Making pros and cons lists.
We do. We value rationality. But the truth is, emotions aren't just side effects of decisions. They're often right at the core of the process.
So it's not logic versus emotion, they're intertwined.
Deeply intertwined. Often we decide based on emotion first, and then our logical brain kicks in to justify the choice we've already leaned towards.
Really? So the logic comes after the feeling sometimes?
Quite often, yes. Antonio Damasio's work here is fascinating. His somatic marker hypothesis suggests our bodies produce these emotional signals. Somatic markers.
Somatic markers. Like gut feelings.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
They're physiological reactions, maybe a knot in your stomach for a bad choice, or a sense of ease for a good one. These are signals generated based on past experiences and learned associations.
So it's the body telling the brain something.
Exactly. Damasio studied patients with damage to a specific part of the brain, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. They could still reason logically, understand consequences.
Yeah.
They couldn't make decisions, even simple ones. They lacked the emotional input, the somatic markers, to tell them which option felt better or worse. They couldn't assign value.
Wow. So without that feeling, that gut check, they were paralyzed.
Pretty much. It powerfully demonstrates that emotion isn't the enemy of reason. It's a crucial component of it.
So emotions help us prioritize, focus, know what matters.
Yes. They help us focus attention, motivate action, avoid danger, pursue rewards. They give meaning to our choices.
And this ties into intuition, right? That quick, almost subconscious knowing.
It does. Intuition is often that rapid, automatic, emotionally charged feeling. It's your brain processing vast amounts of past experience and patterns very quickly, below conscious awareness, and sending up that bodily signal.
Like that experienced firefighter who just knows a building is unsafe.
Exactly. Or the chess master who feels the right move. That's built on countless hours of experience, not magic.
But intuition isn't foolproof, is it? Gut feelings can be wrong.
Absolutely not foolproof, especially in new situations where your past experience isn't relevant, or if your experiences themselves are biased. That's when System 2 needs to step in and check the gut feeling.
So again, it's about balance, not ignoring the gut, but not blindly following it either.
Precisely. Too much emotion leads to impulsive choices. Too little leads to indecision, like Damasio's patients. Emotion gives the why, the meaning. Logic provides the how, the structure. We need both for truly human decisions.
How can we tell the difference, though, between a helpful gut feeling based on real experience and maybe just anxiety or wishful thinking?
That's tricky. Paying attention to patterns helps. Have similar feelings guided you well before? Does the feeling seem rooted in experience or more in general fear or stress? And crucially, when emotions are running high, slow down. Give your rational mind time to catch up.
So don't make big decisions when you're really angry or excited.
Generally not the best idea. Let the emotional wave pass. Also, listen to the quieter emotions too. That subtle feeling that something's just off can be very wise.
Like a misalignment somewhere.
Often, yes. A misalignment between the choice and your deeper values or experiences. Learning to tune into those subtler signals intentionally is a powerful skill.
It sounds like emotional intelligence is key here, understanding our own feelings.
Absolutely. And understanding how emotions influence trust, boundaries in relationships, how you manage yourself in high-pressure situations like interviews or negotiations, that's all emotional intelligence at work. That gut feeling is your body, brain, and experience talking. Honor it, listen to it, but don't let it be the sole dictator. Let it inform, not control. When emotion and reason work together, that's when we make our wisest, most authentic choices.
Integrating the head and the heart, essentially. Okay, let's shift to another major emotional player, fear.
Fear. A huge one. It's designed to protect us, obviously, but boy, can it warp our decision-making, especially when things feel uncertain or risky.
Is that primal alarm bell?
Exactly. Evolutionarily, it triggered fight or flight for physical threats. The problem is our modern brains react similarly to psychological threats.
Like fear of failure, or rejection, or just shame.
Precisely. The amygdala fires up, releasing stress hormones, whether it's a lion chasing you or the prospect of giving a big presentation. The physical response could be similar.
And fear really magnifies uncertainty, doesn't it? Makes things seem worse than they might be.
It does. It taps right into our negativity bias. We naturally weigh potential losses much more heavily than potential gains.
Loss aversion.
That's the one. The pain of losing $100 feels much stronger than the pleasure of gaining $100. So fear fills in the unknowns with worst-case scenarios, pushing us towards playing it safe, avoiding risk.
Like staying in a job you hate because the fear of finding a new one feels bigger than the current misery.
Classic loss aversion fueled by fear. Fear also narrows our focus. It zooms in on the perceived danger.
Tunnel vision.
Right. It makes us magnify risks, discount potential upsides, ignore possibilities that fall outside that narrow beam of perceived threat.
But surely fear isn't always bad. It must be useful sometimes.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Managed fear sharpens our senses, motivates preparation, encourages caution. It alerts us to real dangers we should avoid. It helps us read social cues. It stops us from being reckless. It's a signal that something important is at stake.
So the goal isn't to eliminate fear, because we probably can't, but to understand it, work with it.
Exactly. Become fear-wise. Learn to distinguish real, objective risk from perceived emotional threats. Mixing those up holds us back.
And listen to that internal chatter fear creates.
Yes, that self-talk. I'm not ready. It's the wrong time. What if I fail? Often that's fear disguising itself as reason. It stems from discomfort with uncertainty or fear of judgment. If unexamined, it shapes our choices profoundly.
And we all have different comfort levels with risk, too.
Absolutely. Knowing your own risk tolerance helps you make choices aligned with your values, not just your fears. And reframing failure is huge. Seeing it not as an endpoint, but as part of learning. Risk is often the price of progress.
So courage isn't being fearless.
Not at all. Courage is acting despite fear. It's learning to listen to fear's message. What is it trying to protect? But not automatically obeying its command. Fear is a messenger, not the decision maker. You are.
It points to what matters, but doesn't dictate the path.
Well put. Unexamined fear is the real enemy, not risk itself. Understanding it helps us assess danger more clearly, distinguish instinct from anxiety, and move forward with more intention.
That's a much more empowered way to think about it. Okay, another huge influence, maybe one we underestimate, is everyone else.
Social influence. Yes. We like to think we're independent islands, making our own choices.
But we're really not, are we?
Not even close. We're incredibly social creatures. Our decisions are constantly, often subtly, shaped by the people around us, friends, family, colleagues, even strangers online.
Like a constant social current.
Exactly. It affects everything: fashion, politics, career choices, beliefs. It stems from our evolutionary need to belong. Acceptance meant survival. Rejection meant danger. That wiring is still deep within us.
Leading to conformity, just going along with the group.
Often, yes. We align our thoughts, feelings, actions with group norms because it feels safer, easier, avoids the discomfort of sticking out.
Like in that ash line experiment, where people denied what they saw just to fit in.
A classic demonstration. People conformed to obviously wrong answers given by the group. And we see this everywhere: classrooms, boardrooms, families, social media. It shapes opinions, values, habits.
And then there's peer pressure, which feels more direct.
Right, more active, pushing, subtle or not, to fit in, avoid embarrassment. Very strong in adolescence, but it persists in adulthood. Think trends, gadgets, social behaviors.
And family influence must be massive, starting so early.
Foundational. We absorb values, expectations, ways of behaving from day one. It shapes our worldview, influencing big adult choices about careers, marriage, money, often through internalized shoulds and musts we don't even question.
Wow. And beyond family, there's the wider culture, media.
Huge shapers.
Yeah.
Defining what's popular, praised, successful, attractive. These broader norms influence our goals, identities, feelings of self-worth. Think about fashion trends dictated by media.
And social proof, the idea that if lots of people are doing it, it must be right.
Very powerful. Marketing relies on it heavily. Reviews, follower counts, bestseller lists. Politics uses it too. It creates an illusion of consensus that nudges us along. We assume the crowd knows best.
Even silence can be influential, right? If nobody objects.
That's pluralistic ignorance. Everyone privately disagrees, but assumes everyone else agrees because nobody speaks up. Bad ideas or injustices can persist this way.
But social influence isn't all bad. It's how we learn, cooperate.
Absolutely. It fosters learning, empathy, cooperation. It inspires positive action. Seeing others recycle, vote, speak up can motivate us. The challenge is knowing when influence aligns with our values versus when it steers us away.
So we need to ask, who's influencing me? Why? Is it respect, shared goals, or just fear of not belonging?
Exactly. Pause and ask. Does this choice feel right for me, or am I doing it because others expect it? Do my actions align with my inner compass, regardless of external approval?
It's about conscious conformity versus just drifting along.
Precisely. Awareness allows us to loosen the grip, take the wheel. Not reject all norms, but choose consciously. Decision-making is this dance between self and society. Honesty in that dance leads to choices grounded in your truth.
The best choices come from knowing yourself. Okay, what about when there are just too many choices? That cereal aisle dilemma.
Yes, paralysis by analysis. That overwhelming feeling when too many options lead to confusion, anxiety, and just freezing. Freedom turns into a burden.
Because we think more choice is always better, but it's not.
Often it's not. Research shows too many options stress us out and make us less satisfied with whatever we choose. Remember that jam study?
Right. More jams attracted people, but the smaller selection led to way more actual purchases.
10 times more. It shows how too much choice causes mental fatigue. Choice overload is real.
What's happening in the brain? Just too much work.
Pretty much. More options mean more comparison, more weighing pros and cons, more mental effort. We get stuck trying to find the absolute best, which is often impossible.
And this happens everywhere. Movies, jobs, restaurants.
Everywhere. Endless searching, hesitating. And even after we choose, we feel less satisfied.
Why? Because we keep thinking about the ones we didn't choose.
Exactly. Wondering if we missed out on the perfect one. The illusion of a better alternative haunts us. Fewer choices actually lead to more peace of mind.
Less evaluation time, more commitment, more confidence.
Precisely. Which brings us to satisficers versus maximizers.
Okay, what's the difference?
Satisficers look for good enough. They find an option that meets their criteria and stop searching. Maximizers have to find the absolute best. They exhaustively compare everything.
And satisficers end up happier.
Generally, yes. They experience less regret, less anxiety. Maximizers often get trapped in that endless search for perfection and feel more stressed.
And FOMO, fear of missing out, must pour fuel on this fire.
Oh, massively. Worrying about missing a better option makes us delay, leading to exhaustion and uncertainty. The digital age, with algorithms feeding us endless options, makes it even worse.
So how do we escape this paralysis?
First, accept that more isn't always better. Intentionally limit your options.
Set constraints.
Yes. Second, trust your gut sometimes. Don't overanalyze everything if something feels right. Third, accept trade-offs. No choice is perfect.
Good enough is often better than nothing.
Absolutely. Action beats perfection. Making a decent choice and moving forward is usually better than waiting forever. Find satisfaction in commitment, not just the hunt for the best.
Life rewards action, not perfect analysis.
Exactly. Find clarity in simplicity, peace in commitment.
That's really helpful. Now let's talk about confidence. It seems essential, but tricky.
It really is a double-edged sword. Confidence drives action, turns doubt into commitment. It signals belief.
You need it to take risks, lead, speak up.
Definitely. It provides momentum.
Yeah.
But high confidence doesn't mean you're right.
The problem of overconfidence.
Exactly. Thinking we know more or are better than we actually are. It's a common bias.
Like those studies where people guess answers and are way too sure of themselves.
Precisely. People consistently overestimate their accuracy. It's not about intelligence. It's our brain craving certainty, even false certainty.
And this can lead to bad outcomes in the real world.
Big time. Risky investments, poor planning, ignoring warnings. History is full of examples. Business failures, disasters, often fueled by overconfidence.
And isn't there that Dunning-Kruger thing where less competent people are more confident?
Yes. Those with limited knowledge often overestimate their ability because they don't know what they don't know. Experts, ironically, tend to be less confident because they understand the complexity, the nuances, the uncertainties.
So a bit of humility is actually a good thing for decision-making.
Crucial. Humility makes space for curiosity, for seeking other views, for admitting you might be wrong. It's grounded confidence, not inflated ego. Confidence in your ability to learn can coexist with humility about what you currently know.
How do we guard against our own overconfidence then?
First, recognize that feeling certain isn't the same as being right. Check your certainty, not just the facts.
So you got opposing views. Ask for feedback.
Yes. Embrace challenge. Actively look for reasons you might be wrong. Practice estimating your accuracy and see how you do build that metacognition, thinking about your thinking.
Be wary of group confidence, too. Just because everyone agrees
doesn't mean it's right. Encourage dissent and question the certainty of others, not just yourself. Don't confuse confidence with clarity or confidence.
So confidence is necessary fuel, but unearned confidence is dangerous.
Exactly. The best decision makers are often thoughtful, know when to pause, remain open to being wrong. They see doubt as wisdom. True confidence is acting while being willing to learn. It leads to better decisions grounded in awareness and humility.
That makes sense. Okay, related to this is how choices are presented. Framing.
Yes. Framing is incredibly powerful. Remember the ground beef example? 90% fat-free versus 10% fat.
Same meat, totally different feeling.
Exactly. Framing doesn't change the facts, just the lens we see them through. And that can dramatically alter our choices. It comes from behavioral economics, Kahneman and Tversky, again showing we aren't purely rational.
We respond to the wording, the emphasis.
Definitely. Like the medical example, 90% survival rate sounds way better than 10% mortality rate. Same outcome, different emotional reaction.
And this is used everywhere. Politics, marketing.
Everywhere. Tax benefits versus burdens, crime rates versus safety rates. It shapes the narrative.
Yeah.
And it taps right into loss aversion.
Right. We avoid risk more when things are framed as gains, but seek risk when framed as losses.
Correct. Kahneman and Tversky's disease study showed that perfectly. People chose the certain option when framed as lives saved, they gain, but chose the risky option when the identical outcome was framed as lives lost.
Wow. So marketers use this buy one, get one free instead of 50% off.
Often, yes. Free feels different. We even frame ourselves confident instead of not shy. News headlines frame events constantly.
Can we use this positively, like reframing setbacks?
Absolutely. Reframing challenges as learning opportunities, breakups as chances for growth. That's using framing constructively on ourselves. But we need to be wary of manipulation.
So how do we protect ourselves from being swayed unconsciously?
First, notice the frame. Is it gain or loss? Benefits or risks? What emotions does it trigger?
Then try flipping it.
Yes. Reframe it yourself. See if it feels different. Examine your own framing. Are you focused on the language or the logic? And again, slow down. Framing works best on quick, uncritical thinking.
So understanding the frame helps us see more clearly.
It's the first step. How things are said shapes how we think. Decisions are based on feelings embedded in language, not just raw facts. Question the presentation.
This connects to habits, too, things we do automatically, based on past framing or feelings.
Exactly. Habits are like decisions put on autopilot. Think about your morning routine, brushing teeth, making coffee. You don't consciously decide each step anymore.
They just happen.
Right. Habits are behaviors done without conscious thought because repetition has ingrained them in our neural pathways.
Neurologically, what's happening?
The basal ganglia, deep in the brain, takes over routine behaviors. The prefrontal cortex, used for effortful decisions, gets freed up. Repetition shifts control, making it efficient.
Like learning to drive? Hard at first, then automatic.
Perfect analogy. It becomes an efficient sequence. This happens via the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward.
Okay, break that down.
The cue is the trigger time of day, a feeling, a location. The routine is the behavior itself. The reward is the positive outcome that reinforces the loop: satisfaction, relief, pleasure.
And repetition strengthens those pathways.
Yes, makes the connection stronger, more automatic. Like checking your phone as soon as you wake up, the cue triggers the routine, getting reinforced by the reward, novelty, connection.
And dopamine is involved, making it feel good.
Big time. Dopamine reinforces the reward, making you want to do it again. This is why some habits, like junk food or scrolling, can feel almost addictive.
So we can use this loop to build good habits.
Absolutely. Design the loop intentionally. Choose a cue, like putting running shoes by the door. Define the routine, a short run, and plan a reward, feeling energized, a healthy smoothie.
And breaking bad habits means disrupting the loop.
Yes. Identify the cue, interrupt the routine, and crucially, replace it with a different routine that provides a similar reward. If stress cue makes you crave junk food, routine for comfort reward, try replacing it with a walk or deep breathing, new routine for stress relief reward.
Habits aren't all bad, though. They save mental energy.
Essential for efficiency. But we need mindfulness. Are our habits serving us, or are they outdated routines we need to reevaluate? They are non-conscious decisions.
So understanding the loop gives us power to design our behavior.
Exactly. We can intentionally shape these automatic patterns. Reflect on your routines, what's running on autopilot. You can rewrite the script.
Okay, so after the decision or the habit plays out, then come the feelings: regret, guilt.
Yes, the emotional aftermath. These feelings tell us how we evaluate our choices and definitely influence future ones. Regret and guilt are powerful feedback.
Regret is about wishing you'd chosen differently, focusing on the what-ifs.
Exactly. It arises when the outcome isn't what you hoped for, and you compare it unfavorably to the unchosen options. If only I'd bought the other phone? It's about missed potential.
Can you regret not doing something too?
Oh, definitely. Regret of inaction, missing opportunities can be very strong.
And guilt is different, more about impact on others or values.
Precisely. Guilt focuses on how our choice affected others or if it violated our moral code. Choosing a job that hurts your family might cause guilt, even if it brings personal gain. Impulsive choices that harm others often trigger guilt.
So regret is about my outcome versus alternatives. Guilt is about impact and morality.
That's a good summary. And both strongly shape future choices. They're feedback loops.
Can regret be useful then, as a teacher?
It can. It prompts reflection, helps us learn. I regretted that impulse buy. Next time we'll research more. But dwelling on regret, endlessly replaying what-ifs, is counterproductive. Leads to negativity, decision fatigue, fear.
And guilt. It prompts value alignment.
It can, yes.
Yeah.
But it can also paralyze us, make us avoid situations where we might cause harm. Avoiding decisions to avoid guilt often just leads to more guilt and regret later. Managing it means acknowledging it, learning, moving forward with clearer values.
So how do we handle these tough emotions constructively?
Self-compassion is huge. Treat mistakes kindly. Reframe the decision, what did you learn? Accept the outcome, uncertainty is part of life. If harm was done, make amends if possible. Then, crucially, learn and move on. Don't get stuck.
They're normal human feedback, not signs of failure.
Exactly. They help us reflect, learn, recalibrate. Understanding them helps us make more thoughtful, compassionate choices next time.
Okay, one last big factor that drains our ability to choose well. Decision fatigue.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
that end-of-day brain fog where even picking a TV show feels impossible.
Totally. What is that exactly?
It's mental and emotional exhaustion from making too many decisions. Our brain literally runs low on resources.
Making decisions uses energy, like a muscle.
Exactly like a muscle. Every choice, big or small, depletes cognitive resources. Make too many, and the quality of subsequent decisions drops.
So it's not just laziness when I order takeout after a long day.
Not necessarily. It's decision fatigue. You default to the easiest option because your decision-making muscle is tired. It affects trivial choices, but also important ones. Leads to impulsivity, avoidance, sticking with the default. Roy Baumeister's work showed this clearly.
Impulsive shopping at the end of a long trip.
Classic example. Willpower and thoughtful choice are depleted. In extreme cases, it leads to decision paralysis, avoiding choices altogether.
What's happening neurologically? Is it the prefrontal cortex getting tired?
That's the idea. The prefrontal cortex, handling executive functions, has limited fuel. When it's depleted, we fall back on simpler, less effortful thinking system 1, heuristics which aren't always optimal.
And this impacts work, personal life, health.
Everything. Work productivity suffers mistakes, poor priorities, personal life choosing unhealthy meals, skipping exercise. Health suffers. Relationships can get strained, less patience, more impulsive reactions.
Okay, this sounds bad. How do we fight it? Avoid decision fatigue.
Simplify. Automate routine decisions. Plan ahead. Stick to habits for trivial stuff.
Like meal prepping or wearing a similar uniform to work.
Exactly. Reduce the number of daily choices. Prioritize important decisions for when you have the most mental energy, usually earlier in the day.
Take breaks.
Crucial. Rest replenishes mental energy. Short walks, meditation, just stepping away. Limit options when facing a choice. And delegate low-priority decisions if you can.
So acknowledge it's real and manage our energy.
Yes. Simplify, prioritize, rest, limit, delegate. Preserve that precious mental energy for the choices that truly matter. It improves decisions, productivity, and well-being.
This has been incredibly illuminating. So many hidden forces at play. To wrap up, let's distill some core practical takeaways. What can people listening start doing now?
Okay, practical tips. First, slow down, especially for big choices. Don't rush. Allow time for reflection, gathering info.
Resist the pressure for instant decision.
Exactly. Second, define your values and priorities. What really matters to you? Career, family, health. Clarity here makes decisions easier. Does this align with my core values?
Provides a filter.
Yes. Third, embrace deliberate decision-making sometimes. Yet that structured process. Define, gather info, list options, weigh pros, cons, decide, evaluate. Reduces impulsivity.
Okay, what else?
Fourth, limit your options, as we said. Reduces cognitive load, increases confidence, especially for less critical choices. Aim for good enough, not always perfect.
Don't get lost in endless possibilities.
Right. Fifth, use the 1-10-10 rule. How will this feel in 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years? Shifts perspective beyond immediate feelings.
Get you thinking long term.
Precisely. Sixth, trust your intuition, but verify it. Gut feelings hold wisdom from experience, but balance them with rational thought and evidence. Listen, but check.
Don't ignore it, but don't treat it as infallible.
Exactly. Seventh, recognize and challenge your biases. Seek diverse views, question first impressions, consider the opposite. Awareness is key.
Stay vigilant for those mental shortcuts.
Yes. Eighth, use decision tools if helpful. Process lists, SWOT analysis, decision matrices, they provide structure.
Okay, and finally.
Ninth, learn from the past. Reflect on outcomes, good and bad. What patterns do you see in your own decision-making? Where can you improve? It's about building self-awareness.
It's really about being more mindful, reflective, and strategic. Not perfect, but better.
That's the goal. Using these tips consistently leads to choices more aligned with your values and goals.
Wow, we've covered so much. The complexity, the two systems, biases, emotions, fear, social pressure, fatigue, and ways to navigate it all.
It really is a fascinating interplay of psychology, emotion, and context. But understanding it gives us more agency.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, here's a question to mull over. What's the hardest decision you've ever had to make? And looking back now, what were the biggest factors driving that choice?
We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Share them on social media or in the comments. Shared experiences are so valuable.
Definitely. And if you found this deep dive useful, please do like, subscribe, share it with anyone you think might benefit. It helps us keep doing this.
We really appreciate the support.
And next time, we're diving deep into habit formation and the power of routines, which, as you heard, connects directly to so much of what we discussed today about automatic decisions.
It's going to be a great one. Remember, improving decision-making is a skill, a practice. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel a bit more equipped to navigate your choices with more mindfulness, clarity, and, yes, confidence.
Until next time, make your choices count.